Flagship-tier AI performance, mid-tier price, available to everyone, starting now.
A model was banned by the US government for 18 days. This week, it came back. And the story of why it was banned in the first place is one you need to hear.
South Korea just committed $880 billion to AI and semiconductors. That number is not a typo.
Welcome to AI Made Practical. This is the weekly show that takes the 5 most consequential AI stories and tells you what they actually mean for how you work and compete.
I'm John.
And I'm Jessie. Let's get into it. Generative AI first. And John, I have to lead with Anthropic this week because the Claude Sonnet 5 launch on June 30th is genuinely a milestone moment.
It really is, and I want to frame it the right way because the headline, New Model Released, undersells what actually happened here. Anthropic launched Claude Sonnet 5 and immediately made it the default model for every free and pro user, starting July 1st, not a premium add on, the default.
And the capability claim is significant. Anthropic says Sonnet 5 performs close to Opus 4.8, their flagship model, across a broad range of tasks. Opus 4.8 is the one enterprises pay top dollar for. Sonnet 5 is coming in at $2 per million input tokens through August.
That's the part that should make every CTO sit up. The performance gap between frontier models and mid tier models has been narrowing for 2 years. But this feels like a real compression moment. You're getting near flagship capability at a fraction of the cost, at introductory pricing, available to anyone with a free account.
And Anthropic is specifically calling this the most agentic sonnet ever built. It can plan, it can use tools, browsers, terminals, it can run autonomously in ways that previously required the larger, more expensive model. That's not a feature footnote. That is the direction of the entire platform.
Which connects to something bigger. The AI industry is commoditizing at an extraordinary pace. 6 months ago, you needed Opus to get this quality of output. Today, you get it on Sonnet. 6 months from now, you'll probably get it on Haiku. The cost of intelligence is collapsing, and the organizations that are still waiting to deploy AI because they think it's too expensive are falling further behind every single week.
The democratization argument is real. A solopreneur, a small team, a startup with $100 a month budget. They now have access to reasoning capability that enterprise teams spent tens of thousands of dollars to access just 12 months ago.
The gap between a well resourced team and a well informed individual has never been narrower. That changes how you think about talent, about headcount, about competitive modes.
All right, story 2. And John, this one is about raw speed. Tell me about GPT 5.6 Soul.
So, OpenAI confirmed this week that they're deploying GPT 5.6 Sol on Cerebrus wafer scale hardware for select customers, targeting up to 750 tokens per second. For context, that is approximately 15 times faster than current baseline serving speeds.
15 times. That is not a performance tweak. That is a different category of experience.
Right. And what that speed unlocks is genuinely new use cases. When an AI is generating at 750 tokens per second, you're no longer waiting for output. The latency effectively disappears. That opens the door to real time voice, live coding copilots that keep pace with a developer's thinking, dynamic customer interactions that feel instantaneous.
And the Cerebrus architecture is the interesting part to me. Cerebrus built wafer scale chips specifically to address the memory bandwidth bottleneck that limits transformer inference. Most AI hardware runs into a ceiling because moving data to the compute is the bottleneck, not the compute itself. Cerebrus solves for that at the chip level.
The partnership signals that OpenAI is no longer just an AI lab. They are becoming a systems company, designing the full stack from model to hardware deployment. That is a significant strategic shift.
And for enterprise buyers, this raises the bar on what fast enough means. If your competitors are running at 15 times the speed, the experience delta becomes visible to end customers. Speed is no longer just a nice to have, it becomes a competitive surface.
Speed as a competitive moat. I love that framing. Agentic AI, and Jesse, we have two stories this week that feel connected even though they're technically separate. I want to start with the Fable 5 story because it's one of the most unusual stories we've covered.
This one is genuinely fascinating. So, for anyone who missed it, Anthropic's Fable 5 model went offline globally for 18 days, not because it broke, not because of a safety issue, because the US Department of Commerce placed export controls on it.
Which is extraordinary. Export controls on AI models, not hardware, not physical goods, a software model. And the reason matters. The government determined that Fable 5's capabilities crossed a threshold that triggered national security review under existing export control frameworks.
And then, on July 1st, the Department of Commerce lifted the controls. Fable 5 came back online globally, available on Claude.ai, the API, Claude Code, Claude Cowork, all of it.
The restoration matters, but the 18 days it was offline matters more. Because this is the first time we've seen the US government use export controls to temporarily shut down access to a frontier AI model based on its capabilities. That is a precedent.
And it raises a question that enterprises really need to think about. If you build critical workflows on a frontier AI model, and that model can be taken offline by government action with little warning, what is your contingency? What is your model diversification strategy?
This is the risk management conversation that most AI deployments haven't had yet. We evaluate AI models on performance benchmarks. We rarely evaluate them on availability risk, geopolitical risk, regulatory risk, infrastructure concentration risk. The Fable 5 situation is a forcing function for that conversation.
And the broader implication is that AI is now fully in the domain of national security policy. The State Department, the Department of Commerce, these agencies are making active decisions about which AI capabilities can cross borders and which cannot. That is a new operating reality for every company deploying AI globally.
Okay, story 4, and this one is more optimistic. California's government AI deployment.
Governor Newsom announced the largest US state government AI deployment in history. Every California state agency and every city and county that opts in can now access Anthropic's Claude at a 50% discount.
The scale is staggering. California has 39 million people. State government alone has roughly 300,000 employees. You're talking about putting frontier AI in the hands of every public servant in the most populous state in the country.
And the 50% discount is significant because it removes the cost barrier that has blocked most government agencies from deploying AI at scale. The excuse of "we can't afford it" just got much harder to make.
What I find most interesting is the agentic angle. This is not about giving government employees a chatbot to answer questions. The context here is workflow automation, procurement, permitting, constituent services, compliance monitoring. Agentic AI in government means things like an agent that monitors regulatory filings and flags anomalies, an agent that handles routine permit applications end to end, an agent that routes constituent inquiries to the right department without a human in the loop.
And the ripple effect could be significant. If California demonstrates meaningful productivity gains, and they will measure this, every other state will face political pressure to follow. The public sector AI race just started in earnest.
I'd also watch the vendor dynamics. Anthropic winning the California contract signals that enterprise governments are making deliberate choices about AI partners, not just defaulting to whoever has the biggest name. The trust, safety, and security narrative Anthropic has built is clearly resonating with risk averse public sector buyers.
Government as a bellwether. If the most complex, most risk averse, most politically scrutinized organizations in the world are deploying agentic AI, the "we're not ready" argument gets harder to sustain everywhere else. Analytical AI, and I want to zoom out this week, John, because the story that I keep thinking about is not a product launch. It's a geopolitical signal that has profound analytical implications.
South Korea.
South Korea, $880 billion. That is the size of the National Semiconductor and AI Investment Plan announced this week, described as the largest in the country's history, spread over a decade, but anchored in commitments starting now.
To put that in context, South Korea's entire annual GDP is roughly $2 trillion. They are committing the equivalent of nearly half their GDP, over 10 years, to the AI and semiconductor race. This is not a policy speech. This is a national industrial strategy with a number attached.
And analytically, this matters because it changes the global competitive map in ways that most enterprise leaders haven't priced in. When we talk about AI strategy, we talk about models, platforms, vendors. We rarely talk about where the chips are made, who controls the fabrication infrastructure, and what happens to AI capability trajectories if that geography shifts.
The chip angle is critical. South Korea is home to Samsung and SK Hynix, the two companies that dominate HBM memory production, which is the memory technology that makes modern AI accelerators work. When South Korea invests 880 billion into AI infrastructure, they are reinforcing their position in the global AI supply chain at the most foundational level.
And this is happening in the same week that Geneva is preparing to host the UN Global Dialogue on AI Governance in July and the ITU AI for Good Summit. You have South Korea making an industrial bet of historic scale, and simultaneously the global community beginning to negotiate the governance frameworks that will determine how AI capability can be deployed across borders.
The analytical insight here is the AI race is not just a software race, it is a hardware race, a capital race, a governance race, and a geopolitical race all running simultaneously. The organizations and countries that understand all four dimensions, not just the model benchmarks, will be better positioned to navigate what comes next.
And there's a direct enterprise implication. If you are building an AI strategy that depends on a single chip supplier, a single cloud provider, or a single model vendor, you are accumulating concentration risk in a world where geopolitical decisions can remove access overnight. The Fable 5 export controls are one data point. South Korea's $880 billion bet is another.
Diversification as a strategic imperative, not just for resilience, for optionality. The companies that maintain flexibility across the supply chain will be able to move faster when the landscape shifts. And based on this week's news, the landscape is going to keep shifting.
The analytical AI angle I want to leave people with is this. The data that matters most for your AI strategy right now is not your internal data quality metrics, though those matter enormously. It's your external intelligence on where the industry is actually going. The signals are there. South Korea's bet, the export controls, government adoption at scale. You have to synthesize those signals into decisions.
Watch the infrastructure, watch the policy, watch the money. Those three things will tell you more about where AI is going than any model benchmark. Five stories, a lot of ground. Jesse, what's your theme of the week?
Mine is the price of intelligence is crashing and the cost of not using it is rising. Claude Sonnet 5 at $2 per million tokens, default for every free user. OpenAI delivering 15 times faster inference on Cerebra's hardware. California putting frontier AI in the hands of 300,000 government employees at half price. Every week, the capability gets better, the price comes down, and the gap between the organizations using AI seriously and the ones still waiting grows wider. That gap is the real competitive risk.
I love that framing. My theme is AI is now a geopolitical asset. Fable 5 offline for 18 days because of export controls. South Korea committing $880 billion. The UN convening its first formal global AI governance dialogue. We crossed a line this week, or maybe we finally acknowledged a line we already crossed, where AI capability is treated the same way governments treat nuclear technology, satellite systems, and semiconductor exports. The implications for enterprise strategy, vendor selection, and supply chain risk are significant, and most boards haven't had this conversation yet.
The boardroom AI conversation is about to get a lot more complex. Not just what model should we use, but what happens to our operations if that model becomes geopolitically unavailable.
And honestly, the companies that ask that question now, while there is still time to build flexibility into their architecture, will be in a much stronger position than the ones that wait until the next Fable 5 moment to start thinking about it.
All right, that is a wrap on episode 6 of AI Made Practical. Thank you for spending this time with us.
If this was useful, share it. Forward it to the person in your network who's trying to make sense of what's happening in AI. Because there has never been more noise, and good analysis has never been more valuable.
Subscribe wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. And if you have a story you want us to dig into, reach out. We read everything.
We'll be back next week with 5 more stories, more signal, less noise, and at least one moment where Jesse dramatically recites a number that sounds impossible.
880 billion. I already earned it. Until next week, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep making AI practical.
See you then.